Yo, Crowie here, Sparky Coach Podcast, coming at ya, coming up ya, coming into your headspace, getting up in your grill. Remember Nelly grills? Oh, yeah, what a time to be alive. I want to see your grill. Oh, man. What on earth? If you don't know what I'm talking about, I think Nelly had a stage where he's telling everyone to call him George Foreman because he's selling everybody grills, but like grills with like a diamond sort of thing you put on your teeth. What are what are people thinking? Come on. Anyway, Nelly sort of peaked in Hot in Her in my head. Or Ride With Me, great song. If you want to go and take a ride with me, what a time. What a time. What an era. Anyway, we're going through Finding Work ASAP Part 3, and this is all from our Finding Work Bible where you can reach out for a free copy. We'd love to give that to you because, the more work you have, the more work we have. That's pretty much it. So you can just reach out for that. That would be cool. But yeah, going through what you can do when you are absolutely up the creek. So if you're listening and starting here, definitely go back to 1 and 2. This is Part 3, and it's just a matter of I think I preface both the other sessions with this, but you're always referencing what you could have done 3 to 6 months ago. Like, could you have gotten back to more people, chased up some more people, gotten quotes back, answered the phone? Like, what could you have done better 3 to 6 months ago? And oftentimes people get quite busy and they get out of those busy seasons by either releasing administration or like hiring a tradie or hiring an apprentice. And all of a sudden it's like, now I need work. So just sitting with someone this morning, and they were so stressed about this hire, and as it was their first hire, and I get it, like fully, we've all been there, right? Your first hire is genuinely stressful, and it shouldn't be that stressful because it's just like, if they're billable, you're cruising, and the goal is to sort of bill for, pay to, and then you're making an extra $2,000 a week. Like, let's call it $1,000 a week, whatever. But the goal is that you would be up at the end of the day, and up at the end of the week, and up at the end of the year. That's the goal. You don't need a calculator to do this. You just need to basically bill more than you're paying. It's like pretty simple, right? Like business doesn't need to be that complicated. But yeah, so it's just going through that, but you're referencing what you were doing 3 to 6 months ago, and if you were not doing much in that lead generation finding work, you will pay for that, and maybe you missed those quotes or didn't get that quote out, or maybe you shut down that opportunity, or maybe you just stop breaking bread with people, meeting people, introducing yourself, taking opportunities, and now you landed yourself here. And where you are is where you are, but you got to recognize, 2 things: what you can do to get out of the current space you're in, but also what did you do to lead yourself to this point, and what would you do differently next time? Because it's no good just to always get yourself out of a hole, but you got to work out, well, how come I'm in the hole? How did I get here? And did I have to get here? Because so many people hit rock bottom, not just in business but in life, and then reach out for help. But it's like, well, there were certain steps we could have taken to avoid that rock bottom, And I think, like, as a coaching community, we work with only electricians or aircon or solar. I would encourage you to sort of reach out before you hit. You don't want to hit rock bottom and then reach out, because it's quite hard to recover from rock bottom. But if you're just sort of like, hey, I need some information about pricing, structures, processes, vision, systems, all that kind of stuff, like you wouldn't be alone. Like you weren't born like you had to learn a skill in terms of your on-site skill, and you have to learn how to run a business, and that's normal. You went through training to be a tradie, and why not go through some training to be a successful business owner? But going through this, always reference, what could I have done differently 3 to 6 months ago? Would I do something differently if I had my time again? And maybe I would have hired quickly. Especially the admin world is absolutely huge. Like, if you can get rid of that mundane admin stuff quicker, then you can just do that sort of higher level admin stuff. Then you can get back to those quotes instead of preparing invoices, instead of reconciling, instead of like submitting that solar paperwork, that level 2 paperwork. Someone else can do that, but there's lots of stuff that you can't do, right? There's lots of other people can't do that you can, but just don't get bogged down in that mundane admin stuff. You've got to basically release that. That will cap you. You will hit a ceiling on that. And I think I've said this in a previous podcast, but we run a Sparky VA package where we'll come and we'll train you how to release your admin, and we'll train your admin and we'll take it off you. And we'll just have it prepared for you on your desk. It's a fantastic package, definitely applicable to everyone. So reach out if you want some more information on that. Click the link in the notes and book a session. Anyway, what can you do? We've talked about lots of stuff. One of the things you can do when you're needing work ASAP is subcontract. So it's super interesting because it's subcontracting doesn't necessarily have to mean a drop in rates. Subcontracting is very simply supply and demand. So let's just say this. So if I need you more than you need me, so let's say I come to you and I'm like, what's your name? Corey? Let's say, hey, Corey. I'm Corey, do you have any work? And I'm desperate because, not really, but what's your rates? Oh, yeah, cool. Yeah, okay, we'll do it for 75 because we don't really need anyone. So if you're wondering, your break-even tradie price should be in the 75 to 85 realm, and your break-even apprentice range should be in that 50, 55. That's pretty much where it should sit. If that's out, I'm hesitant to say you're cooked, but if that's wrong, you want to fix that ASAP. And if you don't know where it is, come and see us because we'll show you where it sits. But yeah, so you basically, your subcontract rate is simply supply and demand. So let's say I'm desperate. I remember I had this situation where I was desperate. We needed work, but then I got wind of someone who needed staff, and I had staff. You heard me say this before, we had 3 18-month jobs, 18-month long jobs cancel within literally a 4 to 6 week period. It felt like a day. Within a day they canceled. It was probably 4 to 6 weeks, 4 to 8 weeks, whatever. So I went down the barrel of I'm not stressed. We've got so much work in the pipeline to where are the guys going to be next week? And I remember doing the schedule and having one team out of 6 teams busy. So it's down in the barrel of 10 people with nowhere to go next week. And I was freaking out. And I remember just going chasing up, just calling everyone, and do you need any people? I was like, oh, not really. I was like, God. Because we had a great relationship with other companies around. We used to lend labour both ways, which is really important. A great way to get out of a sticky season or a busy season is definitely to get subcontractors in. They definitely have a rhyme and a reason to the business at certain stages, and a certain style is very applicable to a business model. It's not for everyone, but it's definitely a way. But I remember we used to help each other out a lot, but no one could help me in this situation. And I got wind of this guy who was had this big job in the city. And it's funny that my kids call the Gold Coast the city. I'm from Sydney, we moved to Byron, but it's so funny. They go, we drive up to the Gold Coast and they're looking, there's this one, I think it must be at Coolangatta or Tweed Heads. This is the first high rise you sort of see. And they're Jasper's big city. It's just one tall unit building. It's so funny. Anyway, job was actually in the city of Sydney. And I remember we back and forth on Thursday, on Friday, on Saturday. I'd literally given up hope. And I was fire out, I don't have anything. I'd gone to meet him in his office and we agreed on a rate. The rate I went in at was at normal rates because I kind of knew he was needing labour. And then I'd sort of freaked going he, not saying he balked, but he was oh yeah, okay, let me think about that. And then I was oh man. And then we back and forth text. He's is there any slack on the rate? And I was no, because I knew he needed us. But I was literally gambling with the schedule. I was but if I can pull this off, I'm going to make and I'm probably going to make an extra 20, 25 grand out of the next month if I can pull this off. And it's interesting, right? So many decisions you make, you're going to need to go, let's say this rate across 10 people for a month, there was some serious money in that. And I was if I can just hold firm and get this decision correct, it's probably more 30 to 40 grand come to think of it. But it was a lot of money. I was making a 30 grand decision And I was like, this one rate that goes from sort of like, that's 95 to 75 or whatever it was, if I stick to this, and we were running a $95 rate at that point, we were able to keep, our business was able to keep like a sort of $20 to $25 overhead per billable resource, which is just the nature of how it was structured. It was super low administration, and also we're able to use apprentices to balance that cost operations. And also, this is back when you're paying $32 to $40 an hour for a tradie, which is very different now. You're paying like, what, $45 to $50. So that rate is a carefully calculated and curated rate based upon a significant number of factors. So you can't just come up with a rate that someone else charged, because I sit with people all the time when their operating expenses are $60 an hour. Ours were able to be around the 20. So that's a $40 difference in a break-even rate, right? So it's like, so $40, so that the difference between charging out at 90 and 140 was probably the same thing for both our businesses. So you can never exactly compare apples for apples, because you can if you're in that same sort of structure, but if you're not in that same sort of structure, you need to know what you're talking about with the numbers. But I remember just sitting there going like, fine, we need to make this much money. And I backed myself. I was like, I reckon this guy needs us. Like, I'm pretty good at reading people, and I was like, I reckon this guy needs us. And anyway, so I got to Saturday, and he was like, any slack on the rates? I was like, no. He's like, okay. Didn't hear back. Tried to call him in the afternoon. Nothing. I'm talking like no work from Monday to Friday. And it gets to Sunday night. I've literally cuddled Phoenix down. My phone's downstairs at the time. We're living in this duplex, and I put Phoenix gets to sleep. I put him down. He's 3 months old. I'm like literally walking downstairs, just going to go, I'm a broken shell of a human. Get there, get to my phone, and he's like, all good to go. How many people can you send me tomorrow? And I'm just like, sweet, 10 people coming at you. Updated the schedule, sent it out. It was like 8:15, which is normally the schedule for me was out on Friday afternoon. So for me to get the schedule out Sunday night, like, I don't know if the staff knew something was up or knew something was wrong or whatever, but like, I try not to let people in on that stuff just because I don't want them to fear about their job, And I remember doing it and then sending everyone out there. And then not only that, we were able to charge time and a half and double time overtime. So we were like making, usually speaking on a subcontracting, like you're not making money on materials, where it's like, if your rate's 100, let's say $100 an hour, it's easy math. $100 an hour, there's usually an extra $10 on materials per person per hour. So that 100 goes to 110. But with subcontracting, you don't have that additional materials move. So it's like, you're well entitled to be charging a little bit of a premium because you're not getting that materials money. But also the interesting thing is it's literally supply and demand. Like if you need it, you'll take it. But if someone else needs you more than you need them, you can sort of set the terms and conditions as you sort of wish. So we were actually making really good money. I had the most chill month ever, just cruising. I was in like just cruise control. I was like, wow, this is actually quite easy. I'm pretty much a labour hire company, but my foot had to be on the pedal to stack the work up for the next couple of months, and of course it did. But subcontracting doesn't have to be a dirty word. It can actually be a fantastic way to get yourself out of a hole or dig yourself out of a hole. But like the only thing you got to watch is like when you're starting out in business, the easiest thing to do is subcontract to someone. But the reality is you're not growing your business, you're growing someone else's. So it's like if you're going to subcontract to someone full time, you might as well just go on wages for them. So subcontracting is cool, but it's got to have an end date unless you're calculated enough to make it your business model, which is another conversation in itself. But it doesn't necessarily have to be discounting rates. It's just a supply and demand situation, i.e. who needs who more. So that's an option. Now, if you're absolutely up the creek, you can drop the staff members down to 4 days. I'm a big believer that I remember just freaking out about telling some staff, like, oh, we might drop to 4 days. And someone's like, oh, that'd be sick. I can go surfing. And I was like, oh, what? Like, that'd be heaps cool. You're not worried? You're not scared? Like, what? And then, and I think it was like, don't hesitate to ask if you need it, and always ask, because it's sometimes it works really good for people. Other people are like, actually, that doesn't work. I don't want to use my annual leave on that. And, it's really interesting, but you've got to ask the question. But you got staff training, staff upskilling, staff safety. You can teach staff to quote. You got letterbox drops they can drop around. You got staff going around and breaking bread with people and going to B&I meetings and doing stuff for you. You got drop down to 4 weeks. You got an annual leave option. We've got a bunch of stuff like up your sleeve to implement, But I would encourage you, if you found yourself ever in finding work or needing work ASAP, go back and look at what you're doing 3 to 6 months ago. If you're consistently finding that you need work ASAP, I would say you've got a foundational issue. You don't have the right set of clients. You need clients that are going to give you repeat work, because, generally speaking, finding work takes a lot of time and energy and effort. So when you're doing that, if you need work for tomorrow and next week, you're spending so much energy, so much time, so much effort trying to lay the work up for everyone, that a lot of the mandatory or non-negotiable stuff of the admin world isn't happening. We're not measuring our hours. We're dropping our pants in the quote because we actually need to win it, because I don't have anywhere to send the staff members. So it's it just takes up so much time. It's just genuinely really unprofitable. And one bad month, one bad week, one bad 2 weeks, one bad 3 weeks, one bad 5 weeks can actually ruin your year. So be really, really careful about how you land yourself in that position. If push comes to shove and you've got to let someone go, let the worst person go. And if you've got an absolute weapon, an absolute gun of a tradie or apprentice, try your best not to let them go. But too many people hold on to average or bad staff members, when really maybe the trade gods are speaking to you. Maybe they're telling you, hey, let that person go. And, Moses, let my people go. Moses has been let my people go, let this tradie go. And maybe you got to let it go. And that's cool. There's no shame in that, But I think, if you're consistently finding yourself in that problem, you've got a foundational issue that you need to go back and confront. So that's the Finding Work ASAP series. Hopefully you learned something. Thanks for hanging out. And we are Sparky Coach. We love you guys. See you soon.